The sun had barely climbed over the broken skyline when the patrol entered the village. What remained of the buildings leaned like tired soldiers themselves, walls punched through by old explosions, windows hollow and dark. Sergeant Miles Carter raised his fist, signaling a halt. The unit froze instantly, training overriding fatigue. Dust hung in the air, unmoving, as if even the wind was afraid to breathe. They had been told the area was lightly hostile. That phrase had lost meaning months ago. The first shot came without sound. Private Lewis took one step forward and collapsed, his rifle clattering against the concrete. For half a second, no one understood what had happened. Then the blood spread beneath him, dark and unreal. Carter dropped to one knee, scanning rooftops, windows, alleys, anywhere a shooter could hide. "Contact sniper," he shouted into the radio. Before the echo of his voice faded, the second shot struck Corporal Hernandez in the shoulder, spinning him into the side of a burned-out vehicle. He screamed, more in shock than pain. The patrol scattered for cover, hearts hammering, eyes wide. Still, no muzzle flash, no movement, nothing. This sniper didn't miss. Worse, he didn't rush. The shots came again, measured and patient. A bullet shattered the edge of a wall inches from Carter's face, spraying stone fragments across his helmet. The message was clear. The sniper could have killed him. He chose not to. Not yet. "Where is he?" someone yelled. No one answered. Lieutenant Parker's voice crackled through the radio from the rear command vehicle. "Echo 1, report. Do you have eyes on the shooter?" Carter swallowed. "Negative, he's invisible, we can't pin him." Another soldier went down, clean shot through the thigh, disabling but not fatal. The sniper was controlling the tempo, deciding who lived and who suffered. That was what terrified them most. Parker muted his mic and turned to the operations table inside the mobile command unit. Digital maps flickered with red zones and satellite overlays. Drones circled above the village, but the sniper remained hidden, blending into the terrain like a shadow stitched into reality. "This isn't local militia," Parker said quietly. "This is professional." A senior intelligence officer nodded. "The shot spacing, the angles, he's hurting them." The word hurting settled heavily in the air. Back in the village, Carter pressed himself against a cracked doorway, trying to slow his breathing. His men were scared. He could see it in their eyes. Fear wasn't weakness, but panic could kill them all. "Stay low," he whispered. "Don't move unless I say." As if answering the challenge, another round snapped overhead, close enough that Carter felt heat brush past his cheek. The sniper wanted them pinned, wanted them desperate. At command, desperation was already blooming. "We've lost drone visual," a technician reported. "Thermal's useless, too much residual heat from the ruins." Parker rubbed his face. "Any assets in range?" Silence. Then the intelligence officer hesitated. "There is one possibility." Parker looked up sharply. "Say it." "She's not active. Officially, she doesn't exist anymore." Parker knew exactly who she meant. Every officer with enough years did. A sniper whose record bordered on impossible. Missions completed alone. Targets neutralized without collateral damage. A call sign spoken with a mix of admiration and unease. "She disappeared," Parker said, After the incident," the officer finished. "But if anyone can counter a sniper like this, it's her." Parker stared at the radio console. Regulations screamed in his head. So did the memory of the bodies already falling. Outside, Carter watched blood pool under Lewis's motionless form. The kid had talked about home all morning, about his mother's cooking, about what he'd do when he got back. Carter clenched his jaw. "Command, we're running out of options." The line stayed silent for a long moment. Then Parker leaned forward, heart pounding, and keyed the mic. His voice was steady, but only because it had to be. "This is Command Actual," he said. "If you can hear this transmission, we are requesting assistance." The frequency shifted, classified, rarely used. He spoke the call sign. Out in the hills beyond the village, far from the noise and fear, a woman lay prone beneath a weathered camouflage net. Her rifle rested comfortably against her shoulder, scope trained on the distant battlefield. She had been watching for hours, not intervening, simply observing, learning. The radio beside her had crackled endlessly with voices she ignored, orders she no longer followed, a life she had left behind. Then she heard it. Her call sign. She didn't move at first, didn't blink. The name carried weight, memories of cold nights, perfect shots, and one moment of hesitation that changed everything. Another transmission followed, quieter now, urgent. She exhaled slowly. Below her, the village waited, unaware that the balance of death had just shifted. Her hand reached for the radio. She did not answer immediately. The radio rested beside her left hand, its cracked casing dulled by sand and time. The call sign echoed in her head long after the transmission ended, as if the mountains themselves had spoken it. She kept her eye pressed to the scope, watching the village far below. From this distance, the soldiers looked small, moving shapes trapped between ruined walls and invisible death. She knew exactly where the enemy sniper was. Not his position yet, but his pattern, his confidence, his mistake. Her breathing remained slow and measured, the way it had been drilled into her years ago, before her name was erased from files and her face from walls of honor. Back then, they had called her the calmest shooter in the unit, the one who never rushed, the one who waited longer than anyone else. That patience had saved dozens of lives. And once it had cost some. She shifted slightly, adjusting the bipod with careful precision. The wind slid down the ridge from her right, steady, predictable. Good shooting wind. She could already feel the calculation settling into her bones, instinct returning like muscle memory awakened from a long sleep. The radio crackled again. "This is Command Actual," the voice said, controlled but strained. "If you respond, acknowledge only. We will not repeat the call sign." Her jaw tightened. They were desperate. That was the only reason they had broken the silence, only reason they had reached into the past and pulled her name out of the dark. She finally lifted the radio and pressed the transmit button. "Receiving," she said. The word was flat, emotionless, but it hit the command center like thunder. Inside the mobile unit, every head snapped up. Lieutenant Parker felt the tension leave his chest all at once, replaced by something else, disbelief. "She answered," someone whispered. Parker leaned closer to the mic. "We have a U.S. Army patrol pinned down by an enemy sniper, highly skilled. We've lost 3 already." She listened without interrupting, eyes never leaving the village. Through the scope, she watched a rooftop window 3 buildings east of the patrol. Nothing there. Too obvious. "Give me 10 seconds of silence," she said. Parker hesitated, then nodded to the technician. The channel went quiet. She scanned again, slower this time, not looking for movement, looking for absence. A street corner no one crossed, a window untouched by debris, a shadow that didn't belong. There, a patch of broken masonry on a second-story balcony. No heat signature, no reflection, perfect concealment. Too perfect. "Your sniper isn't local," she said calmly. "Former military, trained to bait, not rush. He's controlling casualties to force a rescue attempt." Carter, still pinned behind cover, heard the unfamiliar female voice over his earpiece. It was steady, certain, different from command chatter. "Who is that?" one of his men whispered. Carter didn't answer. He didn't need to. For the first time since the shooting started, hope edged out fear. At command, Parker swallowed. "Can you neutralize him?" "Yes." The answer came without hesitation. "But you'll need to keep your people exactly where they are," she continued. "No movement, no smoke, no drones. If he senses interference, he'll relocate." Parker nodded, understood. She paused, then added, After this, I disappear again." Parker's finger hovered over the mic. "We just want them alive." "That's why you called me," she replied, then cut the channel. She began to move. Every motion was economical, silent. She slid back from the ridge, slung her rifle, and descended along a narrow goat path etched into the mountainside. She had chosen this vantage point days ago, not knowing why, only that it felt right. Now she knew. The closer she moved to the village, the more details sharpened. The enemy sniper's discipline was strong, but arrogance had crept in. He had fired too many times from the same general sector, confident no one could challenge him. He was wrong. She reached a collapsed water tower and climbed its interior supports, stopping just below the rim. From here, she had a clean lateral angle, one the enemy wouldn't expect. She settled in, building her firing position brick by brick, shadow by shadow. Her mind drifted, unbidden, to the mission that ended everything. A convoy, a child in the crosshairs, a hesitation measured in heartbeats, the shot she didn't take and the explosion that followed. They never said it was her fault. They didn't have to. She pushed the memory away. This was now. Through her scope, she saw him clearly for the first time. Male. Late 30s maybe, calm, focused. He adjusted his rifle, preparing another disabling shot, not a kill. He enjoyed the control. "Not today," she murmured. She adjusted for wind, distance, and elevation. The calculations flowed effortlessly, as natural as breathing. Her finger rested against the trigger, pressure building slowly. She waited. The enemy sniper leaned forward, just slightly, exposing the line of his neck. She fired. The recoil was gentle, familiar. The bullet crossed the distance in less than a second and ended the duel before it truly began. The enemy sniper collapsed backward, rifle slipping from lifeless hands. In the village, Carter flinched at the sound, then waited for the follow-up shot that never came. Seconds passed. Then minutes. No more bullets. "Command," Carter whispered. "It's quiet." At the command center, Parker keyed the mic. "Say again." The shooting stopped. High above them all, the woman was already packing up. She didn't watch the aftermath. She didn't need confirmation. She had answered the call. That was enough. The command center hummed with tension, the low drone of generators and blinking consoles masking the officer's anxiety. Lieutenant Parker leaned forward over the operations table, eyes scanning live feeds and troop positions. The reports from the village were fragmented, panicked. Soldiers down, enemy sniper unseen, chaos. Every option they had deployed, drones, thermal imaging, forward scouts, failed to locate him. Then came the voice. Receiving. It was calm, deliberate, and unmistakable. Female. A professional tone that carried authority without emotion. It didn't just register over the radio, it demanded attention. Parker froze. The room went quiet. "That's impossible," murmured Major Daniels beside him. His voice trembled, betraying disbelief. "She shouldn't exist." "Exactly," Parker said. "She disappeared years ago. Classified mission gone wrong, officially retired. Her call signed, she's not supposed to answer anyone." The voice on the radio continued. "Your soldiers are pinned. Enemy sniper highly trained, former military. He is baiting you, not rushing. Casualties are calculated." The words were precise, clinical. Every syllable confirmed her experience, her knowledge, and her understanding of strategy. Parker felt a chill run down his spine. "We need her," Parker said. "We have no choice." "Command," Daniels objected. "You're talking about breaching every protocol in the manual. We have no clearance, no legal right to contact her. She's off the books." "Yes," Parker admitted, his jaw tight. "And our soldiers are dying. I don't care about legal clearance right now. I want them alive." The room paused, officers exchanging glances. Even seasoned men could feel the weight of that decision. Call someone who technically didn't exist, risk exposure but maybe save lives. A technician keyed the mic. The transmission's secure, but there's a time delay. She'll respond only if she chooses. There's no guarantee she moves or that she agrees to help. Parker exhaled. Then we wait for her to make the first move, and we hope she does. Far above the village, the sniper lay prone beneath her camouflage netting, listening to every word. Years of silence had taught her caution. She had survived by being invisible, by avoiding entanglement with bureaucracy, politics, and glory. But hearing her call sign again, spoken urgently, almost desperately, stirred something dormant in her. Duty, responsibility, the instinct to protect. She remained still, observing the chaos below. Each soldier's movement, each enemy shot told her everything she needed to know. And yet she hesitated. Years of absence had hardened her. She did not respond lightly, did not obey commands she had abandoned. She had her terms. Her finger brushed the radio. She pressed it gently, then spoke. "Acknowledge only. I will act, conditions apply." At the command center, Parker and Daniels leaned forward, straining to hear. The clarity of her voice, calm and resolute, was reassuring in a way they hadn't realized they needed. "What conditions?" Parker asked cautiously. "No backup," she said. "No extraction, no questions. I move alone, unseen. Interference will cost lives. If you attempt to control me, the unit dies." The room grew silent. Every officer understood the stakes. This was not a soldier who followed orders because they were given. It was a legend who answered only when she deemed it necessary. Parker swallowed. "We accept lives first." "Good," she replied. "Positioning now. Maintain all current placements. I will not tolerate movement." The radio clicked off, a heartbeat of silence. Then she began to move. Down the mountainside, along paths only someone who had studied the terrain would know, she advanced. Each step was measured, deliberate, invisible. Her rifle was an extension of her body, her scope a second set of eyes. Enemy patrols passed unaware, soldiers pinned in the village ignorant of the invisible guardian watching them. She paused to survey the roof lines. There, an enemy sniper calculating, patient. She studied his position, noting angles, distances, probable escape routes. The man was skilled but predictable. He had underestimated the person he preyed upon. She remembered the mission that ended everything. The convoy, the child, the hesitation that cost lives. That memory surged, not with guilt this time but with clarity. This was her chance to make it right, to answer the call she had once abandoned. Meanwhile, back at command, Parker adjusted the maps, estimating the angles she would need to traverse, though he knew his calculations were only approximations. The sniper's presence was ghostly, her movements unknown, and yet her effect on the battlefield was immediate. Casualties slowed. Enemy shots faltered. Hope, fragile but tangible, seeped back into the trapped unit's minds. Carter, pinned behind rubble, felt it first as a pause. The bullets came slower, fewer. Then, almost imperceptibly, the rhythm of terror shifted. Someone was changing the tide, but who? "Who's there?" whispered one soldier. "I don't know," Carter replied, "but thank God someone is." High above, the sniper adjusted her position. Her scope trained on the enemy sniper, waiting, calculating. The wind, the distance, the angle, all her years of experience funneled into a single, silent mission. She would strike when the moment was perfect. The village, still unaware, continued to tremble in the shadow of death. But now, unseen and unannounced, a force beyond legend had entered the fight. Her hand rested lightly on the trigger. The decision, the timing, the shot, everything depended on her. No one could reach the enemy, not until she decided they should. And she had decided. The village below was chaos incarnate. Dust and smoke curled from shattered walls, mingling with the cries of men pinned behind crumbling barricades. Each soldier moved carefully, obeying the orders broadcast through the static-filled radio, unaware that someone far above was orchestrating their salvation. She was already in position, a silent presence with no name, no trace, no expectation of gratitude. She adjusted the scope one last time, checking wind, distance, and trajectory. The enemy sniper had moved slightly, predictable, professional, but his confidence was his weakness. She marked him, mentally calculating angles, velocities, and the softest path for a fatal shot. Below, Carter signaled his men to hold position. They were still unsure of who or what was controlling the battlefield. Every second felt like an eternity, each soldier pinned under an invisible pressure. Then came a faint pop. One of the enemy's scouts fell, hitting the rubble silently. Another followed seconds later. The panic began to spread among the hostile forces. She didn't rush. Each shot was precise, deliberate. Every trigger pull a calculation, not a gamble. The enemy's strategy was to intimidate, to control by fear, but she understood control better. Patience, observation, timing. Every movement by the hostile forces was anticipated, every corner watched. The first wave of enemy reinforcements approached from the east. Unaware of the woman's presence, they crept along streets littered with broken vehicles and debris. She waited until they passed the open line of fire and then neutralized the nearest threat. The sound of the bullet was distant, but its effect immediate. Confusion rippled down the line. Men hesitated, then fell. Carter noticed the sudden drop in enemy fire. "What the hell?" he muttered, craning his neck. Another round struck a wall nearby, scattering debris. "Someone's out there. Someone is helping us." She moved silently to a new position, a collapsed warehouse that offered a clearer angle. Her movements were meticulous, silent, and measured, steps placed where no debris would betray her, her shadow never touching a visible surface. From above, she could see the enemy commander, calm in his arrogance, unaware of the predator now stalking him. The enemy sniper, sensing something amiss, shifted again. Subtle movements, a glance at streets and rooftops, but he could not detect her. Not yet. She studied him through her scope, noting his muscle ticks, the way his finger hovered over the trigger. He was confident, but confidence could be broken with the right pressure. She continued picking off isolated enemy fighters, thinning their numbers without revealing her presence. Panic spread rapidly now. Men hesitated, communications faltered, morale broke. The patrol's survival no longer seemed impossible. They were not just pinned, they were beginning to hope. Carter looked around at his squad. Lewis, who had been wounded earlier, was bandaged and ready. His eyes were wide with disbelief. Who's doing this?" he whispered. Carter shook his head. "Doesn't matter, someone just saved our asses." From her vantage point, the sniper observed every detail of the battlefield. She noted the position of the enemy sniper again. He was attempting to flank, likely to gain a better angle on the U.S. patrol. She anticipated his move and adjusted her position accordingly. Another shot rang out, this one precise, hitting an enemy sniper support team. The hidden marksman above the village was now aware of resistance, but not its origin. Hours stretched on. She moved from shadow to shadow, elevation to elevation, never exposing herself, never drawing attention. Each shot was methodical, calculated. The enemy tried to adapt but fell into traps she had laid without moving from her vantage points. In the village, soldiers began to whisper of a ghostly presence, someone pulling the strings, someone guiding fate itself. Carter, crouched behind a partially collapsed wall, felt hope seep back into his chest. "Keep calm, men," he said. "We're not alone." Meanwhile, the enemy sniper became increasingly agitated. He began to reposition frequently, trying to anticipate unseen threats, but she had already calculated every possible movement. The fear in his actions grew, subtle but noticeable. Every twitch betrayed a growing desperation. She paused briefly, watching as one of the enemy's squads tried to retreat. She considered her shot, not just for efficiency but for psychology. Another round struck cleanly. The surviving enemies froze, realizing their control had evaporated. Her eyes lingered on the enemy sniper, now repositioned atop a rooftop. His posture indicated awareness of a threat he could not identify. She had studied him for hours. His arrogance, his skill, his discipline, they would all work against him. From the village, Carter's unit could hear the distant, muted chaos of enemy forces falling apart. "It's working," he said quietly, almost to himself. "Someone's out there taking them down." The woman remained unseen, a ghost in the ruins. She did not speak. She did not celebrate. Her role was singular: eliminate threats, protect lives, and disappear once her task was complete. As the sun began its descent, shadows stretching across the broken village, the enemy commander realized his position was compromised. But before he could act, she had already chosen her next vantage point. Another round, another life neutralized. This time, the enemy sniper himself narrowly dodging death. Every movement was calculated, every shot deliberate, and every second brought her closer to the inevitable confrontation, the face-to-face reckoning with the sniper who had controlled so many lives below. The hunt had begun, and in this deadly game she held every advantage. Silent, unseen, and unstoppable, she was the shadow no one could reach, until the right moment came. The enemy sniper finally realized he was no longer the hunter. Hours of controlling the battlefield, of striking with precision, had been met with invisible resistance. His confidence faltered, replaced by unease. Something or someone was moving against him, erasing his authority, predicting his every decision. He had trained for this, planned for it, but he could not anticipate a ghost. High above, she observed him through her scope. Every twitch, every micro-adjustment of his rifle told her more than any reconnaissance report ever could. His experience was vast, but arrogance betrayed him. Confidence is dangerous in the wrong hands. She remembered the mistakes she had made years ago, the mission that ended her career. A convoy ambush, civilians caught in crossfire, hesitation. That moment of doubt had haunted her for years. It had taught her the cost of failure. This time, hesitation would not exist. She would act decisively. Every calculation, every mental projection was rehearsed in her mind. The enemy sniper shifted his position again, moving to a higher vantage point, believing the wind and shadows would protect him. But she had anticipated the trajectory. He was predictable, and he didn't know it yet. Hours stretched. The sun dipped lower, elongating shadows across the village. Her patience never wavered. The sniper's mind raced, adjusting, repositioning. He tried to psych her out, firing sporadic rounds to provoke a response. None came. The soldiers below noticed the decreased rate of fire from the enemy, confused, unaware that the unseen presence above controlled everything. Her eyes narrowed. She tracked his patterns, analyzed his likely retreat paths, and calculated the exact angle that would expose him without risking detection. Every heartbeat mattered. One wrong move and he would vanish, forcing her to start the hunt again. Suddenly, he paused. His finger hovered over the trigger, scanning for the unseen enemy. She studied him in silence, noting the tension in his shoulders, the faint tremor in his hand. He was a professional, yet he was beginning to fear. Fear is a weapon she understood well. She adjusted her scope slightly, taking a deep breath, and whispered to herself, almost as if she were speaking to the ghosts of the past. "This time, I do it right." The enemy sniper moved again, attempting to flank the village to regain control. Her calculations aligned perfectly. She tracked his shadow against the ruins, estimating the precise timing for her next move. Another slight reposition, another careful adjustment. She was patient. She was invisible. She was unstoppable. Back at the command center, Parker monitored the situation through intermittent drone feeds and reports from the village. "The pattern, he's not shooting as frequently," he murmured, leaning over the console. "Something happening. I think she's working on him." Daniels frowned. "She's working on him who? Parker, what the hell?" Before he could finish, another shot rang out, distant yet devastatingly precise. One of the enemy's men collapsed, and then another. Confusion erupted in the ranks. Carter in the village whispered urgently to his squad, "Look, someone's hitting them. Keep low, stay behind cover." The enemy sniper realized he was being hunted. His arrogance gave way to fear, subtle yet unmistakable. Every movement he made was defensive now, second-guessing every choice. She anticipated each shift, staying always one step ahead, a phantom threading through the chaos. Time seemed to stretch. The village was a stage for this silent battle between two minds. He was desperate to regain control. She was methodical, calm, precise. Her past failures had honed her instincts. Every shot was not just about survival, but about proving, first to herself and then to the world, that she had never truly disappeared. Finally, through a break in the shadows, she saw him clearly. The enemy sniper adjusted his scope, scanning the streets below, unaware that his fate had already been decided. She took careful aim, not impulsively, not emotionally. She aligned everything, the wind, the distance, the target's posture, the seconds for a perfect shot. Her finger brushed the trigger lightly, tension building, and then she paused. Memories surged. Lewis's laughter earlier that day, the smell of burned buildings, the cries of her own team years ago. She drew a slow, steady breath, centering herself. One shot, one decision, one chance. He shifted slightly, unknowingly presenting a fatal line. Her muscles tensed, the scope steady against her shoulder. The battle was no longer just physical, it was psychological. Each had tested the other's patience, endurance, and focus. He had underestimated her resolve. The seconds stretched into an eternity. She exhaled slowly, and then she fired. The bullet tore through the air, precise and silent. The enemy sniper's body twitched, his rifle slipping from his hands. He collapsed onto the rooftop, defeated, his confidence shattered. She lowered her scope, scanning quickly for secondary threats. None appeared. The battlefield shifted immediately, enemy forces hesitated, leaders faltered, and the U.S. patrol gained room to breathe. Carter looked around in disbelief. "Did you see that?" one of his men whispered. Who's doing this?" "They saved us," Carter said, voice barely audible. "Someone's out there, someone unseen." High above, she adjusted her rifle, not to celebrate but to prepare for the next few minutes of survival. She had achieved her objective, neutralized the enemy sniper. But she was still alone, unseen, and ready to disappear again once the mission was complete. Back at command, Parker exhaled. "She did it," he murmured. "She actually did it." Daniels shook his head. "She saved them all and she's still out there. No one can find her." She didn't need recognition. She didn't need thanks. Her presence had been enough. Her work here was done until the next call, the next crisis, the next battlefield. Above the village, she stayed hidden, a shadow among ruins, a mind unmatched, a sniper whose name was known only to those who dared to speak it aloud. The duel had ended. The unseen victor remained invisible, untouchable, and unclaimed by the world she had once served, and perhaps it was better this way. The village seemed to hold its breath. Soldiers crouched behind rubble, ears straining for sound, eyes searching for threats they could not see. Enemy forces were scattered, disoriented, their confidence shattered by an unseen opponent who had rewritten the rules of engagement. And above it all, she waited, silent, invisible, calculating. She had tracked the enemy sniper to a new rooftop, a precarious perch with a clear line of sight over the U.S. patrol. His arrogance had led him here, and that mistake would be decisive. The sun was slipping behind jagged ruins, casting long shadows, making her job both easier and more dangerous. Visibility was low. One wrong shot, one flinch, and he could vanish into the chaos again. Her mind was razor-sharp, focused entirely on the calculations that had become instinct. Wind, distance, posture, pulse. Every factor mattered. Her finger rested lightly on the trigger, not yet committing, waiting for perfection. Through the scope, she studied him. The enemy sniper adjusted his rifle, scanning the streets below. He was methodical, disciplined, confident, but unaware that his every movement was predicted. He was human, and humans made mistakes. She remembered every failure she had endured. The convoy, hesitation, the child caught in crossfire, the guilt she had carried for years. This mission wasn't just about saving the patrol. It was about reclaiming the precision, discipline, and decisiveness she had once lost. One shot, one chance, one choice. Below, Carter's patrol remained pinned, anxious but cautious, following the exact instructions given over the radio. They didn't know who was protecting them, or why, but hope was returning. Even Lewis, wounded earlier, clutched his rifle with renewed determination, trusting the unseen hand above. The enemy sniper twitched slightly, a subtle indication of awareness. He sensed a threat, but he could not see it. She adjusted her aim slightly, accounting for wind that had shifted unpredictably in the last few moments. She inhaled slowly, exhaled, steadying herself. The entire battlefield was silent except for the muted sounds of distant combat. In that silence, her mind raced. Every memory, every failure, every victory weighed heavily but did not distract her. She was calm, she was precise, she was ready. The enemy sniper scanned the streets one last time, unaware that her crosshairs had aligned perfectly with his neck. She waited. She could take the shot now, or wait one more heartbeat, one more subtle adjustment that would guarantee success and avoid collateral risk. Time seemed to slow. She thought of the patrol below, of Carter's voice urging calm, of the men who trusted her unseen judgment. She thought of the soldiers she had once failed to protect, and she thought of herself, returning for this mission alone, answering a call no one else could hear. She pulled the trigger. The shot was perfect, silent to everyone but her. The bullet traveled with absolute precision, striking the enemy sniper where he could not defend. He collapsed backward, rifle slipping from his hands, eyes wide in shock. For a heartbeat, he seemed almost human. Then he was gone, the threat neutralized. The village was still. Then slowly, relief began to ripple through the U.S. patrol. Carter exhaled, letting his body relax for the first time in hours. "He's down," he whispered. "All clear, I think." From command, Parker's voice crackled through the radio. "Status Echo 1, report." Carter pressed the mic. "Enemy sniper neutralized. Casualties held to a minimum. Someone was protecting us. I don't know who, but they were precise, deadly, and gone before we even saw them." High above, she packed her rifle with deliberate efficiency, scanning for secondary threats. None remained. Her job was done. The patrol would survive. Lives had been spared not by luck but by skill, discipline, and experience honed through years of isolation and regret. She allowed herself a brief pause. For a moment, just a heartbeat, she exhaled and let the weight of her mission settle. This shot wasn't just about neutralizing a threat. It was about closure. Proof that she had returned when needed, that she had not lost herself entirely, that one person could make the difference when no one else could. Carter and his men began to move cautiously, following the exact instructions she had relayed over the radio. They stayed low, avoided unnecessary exposure, and began regrouping towards safer ground. They didn't speak of her. No one knew her face, her name, her story. Only the call sign, whispered over the static of a single radio, remained. The enemy forces faltered completely. Without their sniper, their control evaporated. Confusion reigned, leaders scrambled, and the patrol's survival was secured. She looked one last time at the rooftop where he had fallen. No satisfaction, no celebration, only the quiet acknowledgement that the work was done, perfectly executed and unseen. The radio crackled. Parker's voice asked again, "Echo 1, can you confirm extraction?" She didn't respond. She never did. Her agreement had been clear. No extraction, no follow-up, no attachments. She remained a shadow, untouchable, a guardian unseen. As dusk fell over the village, she melted into the terrain, leaving no trace of her passage. Soldiers below could only sense relief, safety, and the mysterious hand that had guided them through peril. She had answered the call. That was enough. Somewhere beyond the ruins, hidden in shadows, she exhaled one last time and prepared to disappear again. The sniper who had been unreachable, untraceable, and unstoppable had completed her mission, but she would never stay to witness gratitude. Recognition was unnecessary. Her work was always enough. And in the silence of the dying day, only the wind whispered her call sign. The village was quiet now, the chaos replaced by an eerie stillness. Soldiers crouched behind shattered walls, scanning for threats that no longer existed. Every sound, the scrape of debris, the distant wind through broken roofs, seemed amplified in the sudden calm. Carter exhaled slowly, muscles unclenching for the first time in hours. The enemy sniper was gone. The unseen force that had saved them was gone too. He looked around at his men, all wide-eyed, still trembling from adrenaline. Lewis rubbed at his bandaged leg, incredulous. Who did that?" he asked softly. Carter shook his head. "I don't know," he admitted. Someone saved us all, and I don't think we'll see them again." In the command center, Parker exhaled, running a hand over his face. "She's already disappeared," he muttered. "No extraction, no trace, just like she said." Daniels leaned against the wall, frowning. "Incredible, unreal. How do you even begin to account for that in the reports?" The official report would read like a miracle. Unseen sniper neutralized the enemy threat. Casualties minimized. Objective achieved. But the truth, the ghost who had intervened, was classified, unrecorded, and unreachable. That was the way she preferred it. Recognition, accolades, even thanks were unnecessary. She had returned for one purpose only, to answer the call when lives depended on it. Back in the village, Carter's squad regrouped. He radioed command, giving a situational update. "We're stabilizing. Enemy fire has ceased. Casualties contained. Repeat, casualties contained." His voice was steady, but inside he felt a mix of relief and awe. His eyes drifted upward. He wanted to see her, to thank her, but the sky above offered nothing. No helicopter, no parachute, no figure in the ruins. Only emptiness and the memory of bullets that had saved their lives. Miles away, she had already begun moving through the ruined hills, slipping between shadows like a wraith. Her rifle was packed, gear adjusted, body blending with the terrain. Every instinct screamed caution. Even after hours of action, even after one perfect shot ended the sniper duel, she remained unseen, untouchable, and fully aware of the danger lingering in the world below. She paused on a ridge overlooking the village one last time, surveying the aftermath. The enemy forces were regrouping chaotically, their confidence shattered. The U.S. patrol was moving carefully, heading toward extraction points. Lives had been saved. Mission accomplished. And yet she did not linger. She had no desire to be seen, no desire to be caught in a photograph or recorded in reports. For her, this was never about fame. It was about doing what others could not, what others would not. It was about duty and redemption in the quietest form. Carter's voice came again over the radio, tentative, almost reverent. "Command, I don't know how to explain it. Someone's here, someone saved us, and I don't even know their name." The radio stayed silent. She had no answer, she never would. Hours later, the patrol reached safety, escorted by air support and reinforcements. Carter took a deep breath, looking back at the village. Broken walls, shattered streets, and empty rooftops told the story of a battlefield reshaped by a ghostly presence. He felt a mix of gratitude and frustration. He wanted to thank her, to meet her, to acknowledge the life she had preserved. Yet he knew he would never see her again. She existed beyond reach, beyond recognition, beyond comprehension. At command, Parker and Daniels debriefed the incident. Reports were written carefully, focusing on the tangible. Sniper neutralized, minimal casualties, objective complete. The ghost who intervened remained unmentioned. Classified, untraceable, untouchable. They all knew the truth, yet it would remain a secret, her choice, her rules. Meanwhile, she moved silently through the ridges and valleys, following paths known only to her. The wind shifted, brushing her face with the scent of dust and smoke, a quiet reminder that the battlefield she had influenced would never forget her presence. Not formally, not officially, but those who had lived because of her, Carter, Lewis, the squad would carry her impact quietly forever. Night fell over the ruins, the village settling into uneasy calm. Lights flickered in command vehicles. Reports were finalized. Soldiers shared quiet words of relief and disbelief. And somewhere unseen, she watched from the shadows, fully aware of her absence and her influence. She allowed herself a small, rare smile. The patrol had survived. The enemy sniper had been neutralized. She had answered the call. That was enough. Somewhere across the hills, the wind carried her call sign faintly, almost like a whisper, threading through radio static, over broken streets and across the battlefield. No one could trace it. No one could reach it. It existed only as a signal of hope, precision, and life-saving presence. Carter and his men returned home eventually. They never spoke of the sniper's face, her voice, or her name, only her legend. They whispered it during briefings, around campfires, and in quiet moments of remembrance. That ghostly presence, the one who had turned the tide, the one who had acted when no one else could, would linger in their memory longer than any rank, medal, or ceremony could ever last. The woman remained beyond reach. Her mission had ended, yet her vigilance never truly ceased. Somewhere in the hills, she watched, listened, and waited for the next call, the next impossible mission, the next moment when she alone could answer the call that no one else could. And in the silence that followed the chaos, the echo of her actions remained. Lives saved, enemy defeated, and a legend that would endure, unseen, untouchable, forever. Months had passed since the village battle, yet the memory of that day lingered like a shadow. The U.S. patrol had returned home, physically intact but mentally scarred. Soldiers whispered in hushed tones during debriefings and training sessions about the invisible sniper who had saved their lives. Her presence had been fleeting, yet undeniable, a ghost who had appeared at the precise moment of need and vanished without leaving a trace. Carter often replayed the events in his mind. He could describe every shot, every movement, every moment that had kept them alive. But he had never seen her face, never heard her name. Only the call sign, the symbol of someone who had answered when no one else could. At the military base, new recruits gathered for marksmanship training. Their instructor, Sergeant Hawthorne, paused mid-lesson. He lowered his rifle and addressed the group. "You need to understand something," he said, voice steady. "In combat, you rely on skill, training, and teamwork. But sometimes someone out there will tip the balance. Someone you won't see, someone you won't know. You may never know their name, but you will feel their impact. You will remember them." He paused, scanning the young faces before him. There was a sniper who saved lives in a village months ago. Unseen, precise, unstoppable. A ghost. A guardian. Her call sign is Echo One. Remember it, respect it, learn from it. The recruits nodded solemnly, sensing the weight of the lesson. Echo One was not just a name. It was a standard, a symbol of courage and dedication beyond personal recognition. Far from the training ground, somewhere in the mountains, she observed the transmissions. She allowed herself a faint smile, though no one would ever see it. She did not need accolades, medals, or recognition. Her satisfaction came from answering the call, saving lives, and knowing she had made a difference when it truly mattered. Her past was filled with failure, regrets, and missions that had ended tragically. The convoy ambush, the civilians caught in crossfire, the hesitation that had haunted her for years, all of it had shaped her into the soldier she had become. Now, in her silent existence, she had reclaimed her purpose, proving that even a ghost could tip the scales of war. The military bureaucracy never recorded her actions. There were no photographs, no press coverage, no official commendations. But the soldiers she had saved carried the memory quietly, in the rhythm of their drills, in the careful way they scanned rooftops, in the whispered respect for the unseen hand that had turned the tide. Carter still replayed the moments in his mind. The precision shots, the eerie calm of the battlefield as the enemy faltered, the sudden sense of hope that had replaced panic. He often imagined the sniper above, moving silently, watching, calculating, saving them without a word. And sometimes, late at night, he thought he heard her voice in his radio, the soft, measured tones giving instructions, issuing warnings, guiding them through danger. He knew it was impossible, yet he believed it anyway. She had left a mark deeper than any medal or ceremony could. Meanwhile, Ekawan continued her solitary existence. She trained, observed, and waited. The world below her moved on, but she remained vigilant, always ready to answer the call should it come again. She had no need for orders, for chains of command or recognition. Her mission was her own, defined by skill, discipline, and an unshakable sense of duty. The legend of Ekawan grew quietly among the ranks. Soldiers spoke of the ghostly sniper who appeared when hope seemed lost. Her call sign became a symbol, repeated in drills, whispered among comrades, and etched into the collective memory of the military community. New recruits learned of her as a parable of courage, patience, and lethal precision, the standard by which they measured themselves, even without ever meeting her. Years would pass, and the battles would continue. Conflicts would arise in distant lands, and new threats would emerge. But the story of Ekawan endured, unbroken, unspoken officially, yet deeply ingrained in those who had survived because of her. Every time a soldier operated under fire, every time a team relied on skill and trust, the legend of Ekawan reminded them of the unseen hand that could change the course of fate. In the mountains, she observed the horizon. The wind carried scents of earth, smoke, and distant cities. She breathed slowly, steadying herself as always. Somewhere, someone might need her again. And when that call came, she would answer just as she always had. No one could reach her, no one could command her. But when lives were at stake, her presence would be undeniable. Ekawan had become more than a sniper. She was a symbol of hope, of precision, and of unwavering duty. The call sign lived on, not as a name on a roster, but as an idea, a standard, and a story told quietly among soldiers who knew that sometimes the most powerful warriors are the ones you never see. As night fell over the mountains, she melted into the shadows, leaving no trace. Her mission had been completed, but her vigilance remained eternal. The call sign, her legacy, would endure in the hearts of those she saved, and in the silent respect of those who understood what it truly meant to answer when no one else could. Somewhere in a quiet base, a young recruit repeated her name under his breath, Ekawan. It was more than a call sign. It was a promise, a legend, and for every soldier who remembered, it would always mean survival, courage, and the unseen hand that turns the tide of battle. The ghost had spoken, the battlefield had listened, and though she vanished without a trace, her presence would never be forgotten.